Hello and welcome to our review of Veronica Mars. I'm Paul.
I'm Dave.
And this week we are discussing the episode Wichita Linebacker. This episode originally aired October 17th, 2006. Alright, so let us start off with the number one song in America. Dave, any idea what it could be in October of
And
2006?
again, just sort of thinking back with previous weeks, and from what I can specifically remember, I wouldn't be surprised if Sexy Back was still hanging on to the title.
It is. It is still Sexy Back by Justin Timberlake.
Yeah.
Moving on to the number one film in America. Any guesses what it could be?
Nothing specifically. It kind of hits around the range of theatrical films that were number one, but weren't exactly within my wheelhouse at the time or anything I'd be interested in watching.
Yeah, I'd be a little surprised if you've seen this particular one. So it is a movie called The Prestige.
I recognize the title, but it's also the case of, yeah, nothing I've specifically seen.
Okay. It's a Christopher Nolan like psychological thriller to do with magicians.
Oh.
Yes, these two magicians are like competing with each other and they're like sabotaging each other's tricks and stuff.
Hmm.
It's quite good. I'll have to watch it again, actually. And moving along to video games, there is a bunch of stuff that came out this week, and some kind of interesting stuff as well. So, to start off, October 11th, if you had a PS2, you could pick up Mortal Kombat Armageddon.
Yeah. Yeah.
On October 12th, if you had a PS2, GameCube, Xbox, Nintendo DS, or there was also a version on the GBA, you could pick up either American Dragon, Jake Long, The Attack of the Dark Dragon, or American Dragon, Jake Long, Rise of the Hunts Clan.
Yes, because it was the thing at the time.
I don't remember this at all.
It wasn't anything groundbreaking.
Okay. Also on October 12th, if you had a PC, you could pick up Nancy Drew, The Creature of Kapu Cave.
Somewhat tracks, but also kind of a case of never getting into the Nancy Drew series.
Yeah, I've never played any of those games either. October 13th, if you had a PC, you could pick up Gothic 3.
Eh?
It's like an open world action role playing game.
Yeah, again, kind of the dime a dozen things from the more traditional ones that most people sort of say is, nah, I've got nothing.
Yeah, it didn't like it. Some outlets reviewed it quite well, others didn't. It seemed to have split opinion on that one. Also on October 13th, if you had a PC, you were more likely to go out and pick up a little game called Microsoft Flight Simulator X.
You know, if you like flight simulators.
Yes. October 16th, if you had a Game Boy Advance, you could pick up The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy.
Because, you know, popular things at the time got video games.
Yes. I don't remember this show at all. Apparently, it was a cartoon.
Yes, very much so. But also kind of the case of depending on your humor and joy for particular things it had within the show, it could supposedly rot your brain.
Ah. October 17th, the day this episode went to air, if you had a PC, you could pick up Age of Empires 3 The War Chiefs, which was obviously an expansion pack for Age of Empires 3.
Hmm.
Or if you had a PC, you could go pick up Battlefield 2142.
Yeah.
If you had a PS2, you could go pick up a copy of this little game that nobody remembers called Bully.
Yeah, which is kind of half true. There's the one half that doesn't remember this game, and then there's the other half of the people that absolutely adore this game for what it was supposedly.
Yes, I really, really would like to see a sequel to Bully, because Bully was a good game.
It would be interesting, but again, it's kind of the case of taking the concept of what it was and supposedly trying to do a retelling of the story with different characters and or supposed continuation, but even then it would be a bit tricky.
I don't think you can do a continuation. I think you have to do like a same concept but different characters.
Hmm.
October 17th as well. If you had a PSP, you could pick up Family Guy the video game.
Because it needs to invade all the video game systems on all the stuff.
Apparently. If you had a PS2, Xbox, or Nintendo DS, you could pick up Justice League Heroes. Which, okay.
Yeah,
Or if you had a Game Boy Advance, they also had you covered with Justice League Heroes The Flash.
because supposedly.
I guess, I don't know. If you had an Xbox, you could pick up Mortal Kombat Armageddon, because it came to Xbox like a couple of days later. I don't know why. That's weird.
Yeah, who knows the case with it.
If you had a PC, you could pick up Sid Meier's Railroads.
Yeah, supposed yes, but
I don't.
eh,
I never played any of those games.
no.
If you had a Game Boy Advance, you could pick up Summon Night Swordcraft Story 2.
Somewhat tracks, but not familiar with the series.
On the Nintendo DS, you could pick up The Legend of Spyro: A New Beginning. Because
Ew. I question how that would supposedly work on the DS trying to go on from there.
I'm assuming it's like this, like a different game, just like using the same title, like it's a toned down version or whatever. If you had a PC, you could pick up The Sims 2 Pets, one of the many expansions that came out for The Sims 2.
And yeah, before DLC could add on to the particular things for it, and you had about 17 different copies of The Sims 2.
If you had an Xbox 360, you could pick up Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell Double Agent.
Yes, but also the case of seeing a lot of advertising for it, but never managing to get into the game.
Yeah, we're getting a new Splinter Cell, aren't we? Isn't there supposed to be one that's in development now?
Supposedly, I haven't really been keeping my ear on that news.
I could have. Yes, okay, there's a remake of the first game that is being developed.
Hmm.
And finally, if you had a PC, you had the option of two different Zoo Tycoon 2 expansion packs today. Either Marine Mania or Zookeeper Collection. Oh, Zookeeper Collection
Somewhat makes
might be like the you get everything kind of pack. I don't know.
okay.
I never played the Zoo Tycoon games. Alrighty.
Vaguely can recall one of them, but not to the extent of that being knowing it was two or not. But yeah, play Wide Tycoon. Yeah, kind of play them all in some sense.
Yeah, kinda. Alrighty, let's get into the episode. Okay. Veronica watches a football practice before she expresses her frustration with Logan. That's not surprising.
Yeah.
Later, she meets Weevil, who is working at a car wash and is not getting along with his boss, who is a major league dickhead.
Which is completely understandable, but is also kind of the case of it's just the worst situation. Like, who would put him in a case like this?
Yeah. Veronica is called into Dean Odell's office, and he threatens her with expulsion if she does not give up some names in relation to the sorority marijuana scandal. She, of course, claims that she can protect her sources as a journalist, which, is actually a thing.
Yeah. Though the dean doesn't exactly care, so
Yes, he yeah. He is actually technically wrong on this. She doesn't have to give up her sources. Student journalists are covered by the same laws that published journalists are. Just a fun little fact. At least that's my understanding. I'm not a lawyer. I could be wrong. Anyway,
man.
moving on. Piz calls Veronica in to help a football player, Kirk oh God, how do you pronounce his last name? Fenstermacher, retrieve his
Good.
playbook, with Kurt's girlfriend Trish paying for the investigation. Veronica's only suggestion is that he gets a new one. Just go print a new one out, you moron.
Yeah.
Veronica convinces her father, Keith, to hire Weevil as his new assistant at Mars Investigations, which I know sounds ridiculous, but also kind of makes sense.
Yeah, in certain respects, but again, it was kind of the case of Veronica, yes, you're trying to help the guy out, but this also seems like a terrible idea. And her father somewhat agrees.
But I will give Weevil credit. He is good at, like, digging up information and stuff. Like, it's not the
That is
worst
very
idea.
true.
Like, it's not the worst idea. In an attempt to print a playbook for Kurt, Veronica disguises herself as a cheerleader but fails to print one. After being called back into the dean's office, Veronica is in the room during a debate between the fraternity boys and feminists. Veronica goes back to the football player and she hypothesizes that his girlfriend's ex-boyfriend stole it. Weevil helps Keith at detective work, succeeding beyond Keith's expectations when he's able to figure out that the delivery driver is the one who is embezzling shoes from this shoe company.
For sadly the obvious reasons.
Yes, he has a heroin addiction.
Yeah.
Veronica talks to the ex-boyfriend before learning that Kurt's best friend is probably guilty. Veronica gets a disturbing phone call from Logan, so she tracks his cell phone, finding him gambling. Veronica and Logan have a fight before she learns that Keith had to stop working for a client when Weevil hit a suspect. And by hit him, I mean hit him repeatedly.
Yeah.
Keith
On
feels
one hand, good that he doesn't go halfway with things, but also the case of, ooh.
also, considering this, I don't feel so bad for the guy he beat up.
Yeah, true, but still, ugh.
Keith feels required to fire Weevil. Veronica tells Weevil the news before she gives him a job fixing the dean's car. Veronica confronts the best friend, but he is not the perpetrator, and Veronica suddenly realizes that Trish is. Veronica lies to Trish about what happened to Kurt in order to elicit a true reaction from her. This plan works, and Veronica learns that Trish took the playbook in order to get him off the team. However, she lost it in the process. Kurt, Trish, and Veronica track it down to the ex-boyfriend who gave the plays to another team to spite the couple. Veronica goes to Dean Odell and asks for an exchange. Veronica tells him that his son spray painted his car, and in exchange, he should hire Weevil as their new maintenance technician, because that makes perfect sense. Weevil is good at, like, fixing things and good with tools, so why not give him a job there?
Yeah, there you go.
Veronica talks to the gambling owner who acts strangely. Veronica tracks his car before. Veronica attempts to track Logan's car before removing the tracker later. Veronica talks to Trish, who says that Kurt left for Kansas. Weevil starts his new job as a Hearst maintenance tech. Piz gets a job on a campus radio show where he interviews both the feminists and the fraternity boys, who also run some kind of, like, lampoon magazine on the campus.
Hmm.
In the middle of the show, the feminists get a text that says Claire, the girl who the fraternity boys pointed out in their really fucking tasteless joke, has been raped. Veronica and Logan reconcile their relationship and kiss. Alrighty, so what do we think of this episode? And did you notice any of the special guest stars this week?
I think on the very most, the particular one, if I got the name correct, it was the Edward James Bedley Jr.
Yes, he plays Dean Odell, yes.
Yes, for that one there. And it was nice to sort of see him there. I've seen him in a couple other particular things throughout the years. And either cases of seeing his traditional kind of expressions or other sorts of methods that he has for particular characters, it meshes well with the Dean character and works well within the show with how much he's kind of had him for that. And I think also the case that nice to sort of have Weevil back within the show, still somewhat in the character, but also the case of trying to deal with the situation that he's kind of in. And at the very least, sort of seeing the good things of doing good work and whatnot, but also having the bit of hair trigger that if something makes him mad, it immediately goes into violence.
Yes, it is nice to have Weevil back, and yes, he does have a bit of a short temper. But he does have a new job, and he is still out on parole, so that is a plus.
Decent Torres.
Yes.
Concept wise, with the other stuff within the story, again, with the actual concept of the football player and all the particular characters, not sure if it was either just a case of following along or with more experience with it being the show, but enough that I was sort of like, yeah, I could sort of see some of the stuff coming a mile away with points going along with everyone that Veronica sort of looked into within the case. And then the additional bits with the side story of the sorority and the fraternity boys of all their particular issues and the other stuff being built up with that. Just the ooh. Main plot things are ooh, the trickies.
Yes. So there was actually one other guest star in this episode, and that was somebody you just mentioned. Kurt is played by Armie Hammer. I don't know if you know who Armie Hammer is.
Not immediately off the top of my head.
Okay. Did you ever see The Social Network?
Believe so, yeah.
He played the Winklevoss twins in that. He played the Lone Ranger in the Lone Ranger movie from like 2013. He's been in like a bunch of movies. You know. He was in the remake of Death on the Nile a couple of years back. Yes. So yes, we have a bunch of stuff kind of happening in this episode, but nothing like arguably super important for the overarching story. Although we do have a new victim, which is important.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so do you have anything else about this episode?
No, I think it would be interesting, at least with the ideas and concepts that they sort of brought in with the additional radio show that brings up the idea and the addition of the newer character victim that was shown up within there. But again, building at the very least for story and whatnot. But again, we'll just have to see where it goes from there.
Yes. So, the next episode is Charlie Don't Surf. In this episode, Veronica and her father Keith take on 3 cases. They figure out that somebody is taking Logan's trust money, while Veronica gets access to the Pi Sigma fraternity, and Keith helps a woman, Harmony Chase, track down her possibly cheating husband. Yes, lots of stuff is going to happen in the next episode. There are, I'm going to say, some kind of important things are going to happen here. Alrighty. So, until next time, I've been Paul.
And I've been Dave.